have too.
Recording in progress.
Check, check. Ten.
Ready?
Yep.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, September 21st, 2022 Walnut Creek Design Review Commission meeting. I call the meeting to order. And Mr. Secretary, would you please take the roll call?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Valia. Here. Commissioner Newsom.
Here.
Vice Chair Killian.
Here.
And Chair Curling.
Here.
Commissioner Case phoned in. She will not be able to make it tonight, but we do have 4 and we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 2, consent calendar. I have an item I would like to propose moving to consent. Is there anything else on consent?
Staff would just recommend A.
Okay, great.
4A.
Yeah, I would propose we move item 4A, the one-year extension on the bank project, to consent.
I agree.
Agreed.
All good? I don't think
All
we don't
good.
have to vote on that, right?
You just did, but we typically take a roll call, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Actually, it is.
do it,
necessary.
yeah.
Let's do it, yeah. Commissioner Valia.
Yes.
Commissioner Newsom.
Yes.
Vice Chair Killian.
Yes.
And Chair Curling.
Yes.
That's 4. That's an aye.
All right.
Consent.
Thank you. So we've moved item 1, F&M Bank, one-year extension request, to consent. So does anybody in the audience or do any of the commissioners or anybody on Zoom want to take any item, this one item, off of consent for discussion?
Seeing none?
Seeing none. All right, then we will accept the consent items as is. All right, moving on to item 3, public.
We need to make a motion on that?
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, motion to accept consent items as is.
To approve.
I so move.
All right, motion made and seconded. Can we take a vote, Mr. Secretary?
Yes. Who made the second?
Philip.
Who made the motion?
The chair.
The chair, okay. Okay, Commissioner Valia,
Yes.
Commissioner Killian,
Yes.
Chair Curling,
Yes.
and Commissioner Newsom.
That would be a yes.
Okay, that's 4-0. Item passes.
Batting 1,000 tonight. All right, moving on to public communications. And before I do that, because I realized I forgot, for those who are not in the room on Zoom, the Zoom meeting ID is 831-1452-7774, and the password is 709904. And if you're unable to join via Zoom, you can call into Zoom at 669-900-6833. And just a reminder, we're providing Zoom as a convenience to the public for you to observe and make public comment. However, we cannot guarantee that Zoom will be stable and available, so we always recommend that you come to council chambers in person if you can. So moving on to public comment, item 3. This portion of the meeting is reserved for comment on items not already on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. So is there anybody in chambers tonight who wishes to address the commission for anything other than the minor housing project, which is on our agenda of public hearings? I'm not seeing anybody in chambers. Is there anybody on Zoom? If you would raise your hand on Zoom, if you would like to address the commission for anything other than the minor subdivision.
I see no electronic hands raised.
All right, then we will close public communications and move on to public hearings. And moving on to item B, the residences, single-family homes. It's a major subdivision, density bonus and design review, tree removal permits, tree drip line encroachment permits. It's application Y22019 at 730 and 748 Minor Road. Does staff have a presentation for us?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Simmer Gill, Associate Planner with the City, and we are here tonight for the study session on the minor subdivision, the 17-lot single-family subdivision that will be located at 730 and 748 Minor Road. The applicant, Andy Bide, and his team are here tonight, as am I, to answer any questions that you may have after this presentation. Let's start with the project site. The three rectangular lots that total 2 acres in size will be merged to create a 17-lot single-family subdivision. The surrounding area consists of single-family homes that are zoned R10, and across Minor Road to the north are the BART tracks and also properties that are located in the City of Concord's jurisdiction. And here is an image of the existing site plan. Access to the site is gained from Minor Road. The site is vegetated with several trees, most of which will be removed for the proposed construction. And the 2 existing homes and also the accessory structures on site will also be demolished as part of this project. And just going into the project, the applicant is proposing a 17-lot single-family subdivision, and the home is located on Lot 15. That will be set aside for a very low-income household. Each of the homes will have a 2-car garage, meeting the city's parking requirements, and the project also consists of frontage improvements, tree removals, work within the drip line of code-protected trees, work within the drip line of off-site trees, so the neighboring properties, and new landscaping for the site. And the project before you tonight does require Design Review Commission's input and recommendation to the Planning Commission. The DRC will review the site layout, the building architecture, the color materials palette, and the new landscaping. And if the recommendation is given to move forward, the Planning Commission will consider approval of the major subdivision map, the density bonus waivers, and the tree associated requests. If the project is approved by the Planning Commission, it will then ultimately return back to this commission, the DRC, for a final design review of the project. And I did want to mention that this project is being processed under the Housing Accountability Act, also known as Senate Bill SB 330, which does dictate that a city cannot deny or lower the density of a housing project that does comply with all of the city's objective standards unless it's found that the project or any of the waivers that are tied to this project would result in or impact the public health and safety. SB 330 also limits the total number of public hearings to 5. Tonight is the first public hearing for this project. Staff has reviewed the project against all of the city's objective development standards, the zoning ordinance, as well as the objective design standards that's included in the checklist as one of the attachments of the agenda packet tonight. And the city has found that the project is in compliance and is therefore covered under the Housing Accountability Act. The other state law that is part of the project is the density bonus. Since the applicant is providing a low-income unit, the project is entitled to receive a density bonus and waivers and also one concession under state's density bonus law. The applicant is requesting a concession to the base density of units per net acre under the general plan. The concession will utilize gross lot area, which is 2.03 acres versus the net lot area of 1.75 acres to determine the permissible density for this project. The applicant does base this request on the argument that the concession would result in identifiable cost reductions for the project. So by increasing the number of units and spreading the fixed costs of the project over a larger number of units, it would result in reducing the per unit costs for this project. And with the concession, again, the base density calculated with the gross area, the developer will get 2 additional units than they would if it was calculated at the net lot area. And staff has reviewed the applicant's request in consultation with the city attorney's office and has concluded that a concession may be granted against the net area standard under the general plan, as the concession is required to achieve the cost reductions that are associated with this project. Additionally, there is no indication that the city would be able to make the required findings under state law to deny that concession request. So the base density for the 2.03 acre site would accommodate 13 units pursuant to the city's general plan. And since the applicant is providing an 8% dedicated towards one very low income unit, that does give the developer a 27.5% bonus or increase in density, which is 4 bonus units for this project. That does result in a maximum of 17 units in compliance with the state's density bonus allowed density. And under the state's density bonus law, the applicant may also request a relief from the development standards through waivers in order to achieve the permitted density. Basically, that in order to get the 17 units, the developer is not able to meet all of the city's development standards, as it will preclude the feasibility of this development. So state law actually allows them to request the waivers under a density bonus project. The project is requesting 16 waivers as identified on this table, which includes waivers to setbacks, street standards, and lot coverage. The front setback for the homes ranges from 4 to 6 feet. The side setback ranges from 3.5 feet to 5 feet, and the rear setback ranges from 4.5 feet to 13 feet. And I would also like to highlight that under density bonus law, the city and the commission is required to allow the waivers of such standards unless specific findings are made that any of the requested waivers would result in adverse impacts to public health or safety. Staff has analyzed these waivers and has found that none of the waivers could be tied to health and safety impacts. They are essentially creating smaller lots, but the homes will be designed to meet the building code and safety requirements and egress and also accessibility for fire trucks or emergency vehicles. Additional justification of the waiver request is provided in the applicant's letter, and that is included as attachment 5 of your packet tonight. And here is the proposed tentative map that shows a new private street that's stemming from Minot Road that will provide access to the 17 new lots. A right-of-way dedication along Minot Road is proposed, and frontage improvements include a new 5-foot wide sidewalk to match the existing frontage to the northeast, new street lights, storm drain facilities, and also undergrounding of the existing utilities. The 2 bioretention basin facilities will be located along the project frontage, and since the project, the proposed street does not meet the city's street standards, it will be maintained as a private road. A homeowners association will maintain the private street, the new street lights, and the proposed bioretention basin facilities within this development. So given all of that context, I will now get into the design of the homes. The homes include 3 different floor plan types, Plan 1, 2, and Plan 3. And there are 3 elevation design styles for each plan: the farmhouse, Spanish colonial, and the modern prairie, which are spread across the 17 homes. And Plan 1 also includes a contemporary style architecture that will be applied to the home located on Lot 3. Each home is 2 stories and includes a 2-car garage. And as indicated with the blue star, Plan 1 is a 2,389 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath layout with a loft. And Plan 2 with the yellow star is a 2,498 square foot, 3-bedroom and 3-bath design. Plan 3 is the larger of the three plans, and that is indicated with the green star. It's 2,513 square feet with 4 bedrooms and 3-bath design with a loft. And each elevation design does alternate throughout the development to provide that visual interest and variability. And here is the floor plan for the homes designed under Plan 1. This plan does differ from the other two plans as the design has been designed with right side front entry doors. And Plan 1 consists of 4 different elevation styles and has been designed on the 4 corner lots within the internal private street, lots 3, 4, 14, and 15. And the design concept does focus on the front entry by placing the garages on the side of the homes, away from the main entry private street. And the applicant did mention the intent was to activate that central private street with the front doors facing the street. And I'll just start with the modern farmhouse architecture. It consists of a concrete slate tiled gabled roof with siding materials consisting of stone, horizontal lap siding, vertical board, and batten siding. And the farmhouse style under Plan 1 is designed with the right side front entry doors, as mentioned earlier. The windows have a vertical grid pattern, and the garage doors feature a steel design with transom windows above. And the Spanish colonial architecture includes a S-shaped concrete tile on a gabled roof with stucco siding, recessed windows. The upper half of the windows have grids and decorative ceramic tile recesses and window shutters. And here's the modern prairie architecture, which includes concrete shingle hipped roof with 3 different siding materials that consist of stucco, horizontal lap siding, and brick veneer. And the design includes horizontal window grids and steel garage doors. And the single color for both the stucco and lap siding is accented by the brick wainscot that's included under Plan 1. And here's the contemporary architecture, which again is only used under Plan 1 for Lot 3, and it does include concrete shake tiles on a hipped roof with materials consisting of stucco, stone, and horizontal lap siding. The home includes distinct window grids and steel glass doors. 2 paint colors are proposed with a stone veneer base, and again, the entry doors are located on the right elevation of all of the homes under Plan 1. And this is Plan 2. So the floor plan for the Plan 2, it is a little different from the layout that we just seen previously for Plan 1. And here's the architecture style proposed under Plan 2. Here are the 4 building elevations of farmhouse architecture. And here are the 4 elevations for modern prairie. And then the Spanish colonial. Actually, I wanted to go back to the modern prairie, yeah. So staff did suggest that the applicant consider accentuating the design of the street-facing elevation on the home on Lot 1, the side elevation, as it would benefit from like additional design element, maybe a horizontal band, just to break up the first and second floor, or introduction of like a second material. So that's something that was brought to the attention of the developer. And here are, here's Plan 3. And Plan 3 also includes the same, the farmhouse, modern prairie, and Spanish architecture, though the exterior building designs are different in all 3 plans, again, to provide the variability which is required under the Objective Design Standards checklist for SB 330 projects. And here's the farmhouse building elevations under Plan 3. And the Spanish colonial, modern prairie. And then here's a quick look of all the 3 different plans side by side. Staff is supportive of the building designs and does believe that the various floor plans, the elevation styles, the color materials palettes does bring variation and visual interest to the development. And the building designs are compliant with the objective design standards for single-family development. Staff is seeking DRC's input on the building designs as proposed. And here are the 6 different color schemes. I believe 2 elevation types will be provided. So each elevation type will provide 2 color schemes. And an actual color material board was not included as part of the submittal, but could be requested by this commission if you would like to see the actual color swatches and the materials prior to the next DRC hearing. And now moving on to the landscaping. A total of 36 24-inch box trees and a mix of 5-gallon shrubs, ground cover, and vines are proposed for this development. Of the 36 trees, 4 Chinese elm trees will be installed along the project frontage, 2 on each side of the private road. And 8 pistachio trees are proposed along the new private driveway, and 24 trees consisting of crepe myrtles, laurel trees, and fruit trees will be scattered throughout the development in front of the new 17 new homes. The 2 bioretention basin facilities will be landscaped with shrubs and ground cover to provide an attractive feature that will be not only visible from the internal development, but also from Minert Road. And the proposed plant palette and the irrigation methods comply with the landscape standards outlined in the Objective Design Standard Checklist, and also comply with the city's water efficient landscape ordinance. Staff is supportive of the landscaping plan as proposed, but would like DRC's input. And here's a look at the different plantings that are proposed. And now moving on to the tree removals. Any tree measuring 9 inches in diameter or greater is subject to the city's tree preservation ordinance. The preliminary arborist report shows 27 trees that will be removed. The 27 trees consist of valley oaks, live oaks, California walnuts, and mulberry trees. 15 of these trees are considered highly protected trees under the tree preservation ordinance, and I have listed those on this slide. The city's consulting arborist has reviewed the project arborist report and supports the removals based on their existing condition and location. The consulting arborist also recommended that the in lieu fee for the removal of the highly protected trees goes into the city's tree fund in the amount of $164,000, which is the total valuation of the highly protected trees as indicated in the arborist report. The proposed development will also encroach within the drip line of the 12 off-site trees that I have indicated here. Tree protection fencing and recommendations are included in the arborist report, and those will be included as conditions of approval of this project when it moves forward to Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission is the highest approving body, so they will consider all of the tree removals as well as the drip line encroachment permits. And I did want to point out this is a preliminary arborist report and it is subject to change. I believe there's a tree number 14 that's indicated to be potentially saved, but I believe it's being removed, so the report will be updated before we move forward to the Planning Commission hearing. Tonight, staff is basically seeking DRC's initial feedback on the tree removal requests and the drip line encroachment permits. And just to summarize, staff is requesting DRC's input on the proposed site design, the building architecture, the landscape plan, the tree removal requests, tentative map, the density bonus, and the requested waivers. And with that, staff does recommend that the DRC provide a positive recommendation to the Planning Commission on the current set of plans. However, DRC could choose to see design revisions prior to proceeding to Planning Commission if that is something you wish to do. That is all I have for my presentation, but for the record, I would like to add that I received 2 letters of correspondence. One letter was in support of the housing development, and one letter was expressing concerns with, I believe they focused on the density and also the tree removals. And I've also received several phone calls from neighboring properties expressing concerns with the density and primarily the number of trees that are being removed. Andy Bide, the developer, I believe does have a presentation for all of you tonight as well. But with that, I do conclude my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Time for questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Valia?
Yes, Samar, do you have any drawings of two of the houses together?
Side by side.
I just wonder how that looks, because, I mean, if you look at them individually, yeah, that looks great in a big lot, but what about all these houses that are probably 8 feet away one from the other? Although they
Oh,
look,
in context to the surrounding properties? Is that what you're
no,
asking?
no. Say
You're looking for a streetscape elevation?
Yeah.
12, lots 12 and 13. Is there any drawing that shows me the different houses on 12 and 13 with the 8-foot separation? What's happening with the windows? Are those firewalls? I mean, what's the deal? I'm just,
Yeah, I don't have those as part of the packet. Possibly the developer has that as part of their presentation, but as you see on the site plan, they do show the distances. The window orientation could be seen on the floor plans, but you want to see them side by side. Yeah, and
I would love to see a.
I don't have
drawing of
that,
Because
yeah.
I think the distances between the houses and the fences, if there's a fences between houses, is 4 feet or 5 feet. I don't know if I'm reading this right, but it's very small. So I would like to see that massive houses, one next to the other.
Yeah, I don't believe that was included as part of the plan set.
Right, I mean, it's deceiving when you show this house by house, separate pages, and you don't show how everything looks when you put everything together. That's it, thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Newsom, questions?
I'm actually good right now.
Great. Vice Chair Killian, any questions of staff?
Simmer, I'm kind of curious on these waivers. Is there a limit to the, what they could request? For example, the setbacks, could they go down to 1 foot? I mean,
Well, then it wouldn't meet the building code minimum distance of 3 feet, so then we would be denying that waiver.
okay, and a driveway length, I mean, could that go down to 2 feet?
The driveway, yeah, I mean, there's no requirement in the Muni code that requires that vehicles have to be parked on the driveway. The Muni code requires that each home requires 2 covered parking stalls, so a covered garage. So they would need to provide that, and they are. Yes,
So
they
there's
could
really no
possibly-
minimum as long as they meet the building code on the waivers?
That is
they're-
correct.
They're requesting?
Yeah, and they can actually request unlimited, according to state law.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my first question for staff is, what is staff's opinion? How do you feel about the placement of the houses on the property? And I'm particularly interested in, and any opinions you have on lots 13, 16, 2, and 5, because they seem to be fortressed in by houses on 3 sides, and then, of course, they'll have a back neighbor with a little bit of a rear setback. I've never seen a layout quite like this before. It's probably the first thing that struck me, and I'm just curious, what do you and the rest of planning staff think of that?
I will defer that question actually to the architect, because I believe they've gone through design revisions, and there was a purpose behind that, so I will have them explain that.
Okay.
But as far as staff having concerns, as I mentioned earlier, the way the state law reads is we cannot deny waivers unless we could tie it to health and safety impacts. And as proposed, as I mentioned earlier, that it will still provide accessibility to the site. Emergency vehicles, the fire access will be provided. The fire department has reviewed these plans and has not expressed any concerns. The building division has reviewed these plans and made sure they have egress windows and a minimum 3-foot distance between each building. If you combine the 2 buildings, I think there's at least a 7-foot distance, if not more. So based on that, there was really no reason for the city or staff to really push back on that.
So rather than thinking about it as pushback, I would ask when we come back, maybe for the final design review,
Yeah.
I'd love the city planning staff's opinion. while the state law says they can have the unlimited number of waivers, et cetera, and it controls the density, what we can still do as a design review commission, and what I also think planning staff can do, is still look at it and work with the developer to get the optimal placement of the buildings on the lot that gives the best experience for both the surrounding neighbors and the new homeowners who are going to buy these homes. So I think there's still, this will probably get built, and it will probably have 17 houses because state law says they can do that, but we want to make it as, between the commission and the city, I think we want to make it as best a development as we can for everyone who's going to be living there. So I would just love, it's more asking, hey, what do you guys think, rather than, no, we can't deny it because it specifically meets the building code. If you guys are able to do that at the next meeting, that would be awesome.
Okay.
We did work with the applicant, talking about orientation, location, placement of size of homes on the lots, and then it's, you know, they've convinced or provided evidence that they've gone through several iterations and have landed on what they feel is the best approach.
Okay, thank you. And then a request I have that would be, and it's really a request of the developer, that would be similar to Commissioner Valia, is I'd love to see renderings, 3D renderings. You know, what's it going to look like if I am in the front yard of lot 13 or 16? You know, what's the new homeowner there going to experience, given the way the layout is? It's really, I agree with Commissioner Valia, it's very hard to tell from the two-dimensional. And I know that I'm just taking the opportunity to mention that, but I know that's a question I have for the developer. And then finally, a technical question. Have we specifically asked the city attorney if the state housing laws actually override our tree preservation ordinance, which is, it's a different law than our zoning? Have we made a formal request of the city attorney to get that opinion? And if not, I would like to know if the state law technically, legally overrides the tree preservation ordinance.
But this project is not requesting waivers or concession to the tree preservation ordinance. What they're requesting is a tree removal, which under the Muni Code, it's actually allowed to request for removal of trees. We do have findings that we have to make. The Planning Commission will make the findings or support the findings if they agree. But one of the findings is, does removal of the trees outweigh the benefit that this project would have to the public? So here they're building 17 new housing development, like homes that will be for the public, versus trying to maintain, keep the trees and then losing lots. So there's findings, and again, like I said, tree removal, they're also providing trees. So it's not they're just removing them and not planting additional. They're planting, I believe, the same number of trees that they're removing.
I'm sort of more concerned with, I get your point, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm probably mainly concerned with the highly protected tree removal, because we tend to, I'll just say, pre the new state housing laws, we would fight to save the highly protected trees as much as we can. And it doesn't feel that way now. And so it's just a
Yeah.
technical,
Chip, do you
legal
have any
question I'm
information
curious
with the city
about.
attorney regarding the tree preservation ordinance?
No, I would stick with Simmer's statement that they're not looking for a waiver here for tree removal.
Right, but
I mean, it's
Yeah.
It's not a part of,
the only way state law could be brought into it is as Sim said, in the health and safety aspect of it, of removing a tree.
all right, well, maybe I'll just ask the city attorney.
yeah, I think that question isn't related to this project.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. That's all my questions for staff. Okay, does the applicant have a presentation?
Just make it full screen. Is that gonna go? Oh, maybe let's do this. What if we click on the video? There we go. All right. And just advance? Yes. Okay, perfect. Good evening, members of the Design Review Commission. My name is Andy Bide. I'm a partner with Caliber Ventures. We have been working on this property for approximately 18 months at 730 and 748. And as Simmer mentioned, this is a little over 2.03 acre gross acre site. Just to kind of go over just some brief facts, which I know Simmer has already kind of touched on. As Simmer mentioned, we're utilizing state density bonus law. We're providing one affordable unit specifically at the very low income category. So a family will be able to afford one of these units in the very low income with zero government subsidy, which is obviously a very unusual condition in today's world. As part of it, we're proposing a 28-foot wide road. So I know some other projects that have been before your commission, you have typically asked for a slightly narrower road. After constructing a few projects and living in a few of 28 feet, I feel like that's an adequate sized road. You can get parking on one side. It has enough size where cars can pass comfortably. So we wanted to make sure we included an adequate width access way. One of the kind of the key pieces that we started out in designing this project is, and I know this is after sitting on a few housing panels, is something that city housing staff and others have articulated as an issue, in that there's a term called a missing middle within the housing world, and that is we build low-income housing, we build high-density housing, we build expensive housing. We don't build housing for kind of the middle class, so to speak. And that product typically aims at townhomes or small lot single-family detached, like we have in this instance. And so we kind of set out trying to kind of fill that gap a little bit. In that, we have single-family detached homes, we have separate two-car garages, we don't have attached walls. These will allow, dramatically lower HOA dues than what you'd have in a townhome or other attached kind of condition. In addition, you do get a small, albeit usable, rear yard where you can actually, function outside. You've got some play space in some of the street areas, and then a higher bedroom count to provide for families, provide for home office kind of production. In addition, we're going to have, as Simmer mentioned, we're going to have a homeowners association, which will manage all the common area on the project. And then there's currently along Minot Road, there's currently 2 missing frontage segments. And so obviously filling in one of the missing segments of sidewalk. And in this particular instance, as somebody who lives there, I know personally, right, this is the most dangerous piece. This piece had never dedicated any right-of-way. In fact, it was all easement. And so all the improvements for this current property come right up to the edge of pavement, and it's really dangerous for pedestrians. So we'll be obviously fixing that issue. I won't go through the site plan too much. I think Simmer did a great job, but I did want to kind of start a little bit on how we got here. I think that's always an important piece. We didn't just kind of develop the architecture and land here and jam as many units in. We looked at a lower density product. One of the big issues that we found out is what you have on that center, right, the site's got to be accessed through the middle along where Abigail Place is shown. You just get this giant 90-foot cul-de-sac, which is the new fire standard, and you have all the kind of odd-shaped lots with big chunks taken out of them along for this cul-de-sac. It doesn't result in dramatically higher tree savings. In addition, because the site is so flat, in order to accommodate the hydromodification requirements that the state puts on the city, right, we end up with these large, deep basins that we have to lift the site up to get to. So it proved problematic. The other piece that we also kind of started at, because based on our density, right, or based on the density bonus calculations, that we could have gone up to 20 units. We actually had a 20-unit layout that we were working with, but we felt like that unit product that was too tight. There were no driveway aprons that were parkable. That we lost all the street parking. So we felt like that was just not a great approach either. So we settled in at 17, where we could get some units with 6 of the 17 units all have 18-foot driveway aprons. So we get some driveway aprons, we get some differentiation in home types, we get some usable rear yards, admittedly small, modest yards, and then we were able to kind of vary the architecture. That's kind of how we landed in this on the site plan that's before your commission tonight. In addition, I've got Mark Rutherford and Annika Carpenter. Annika's with Ripley Design, the landscape architect. Mark is with WHA. He can kind of go through some specific architecture. and I'll have them come out. Let's start with Annika. I'll bring her up, and she can kind of walk you through the landscape architecture. But I suffice it to say, we set out on this design journey to really make a great project, make something that folks would be proud of. I mean, one of the things of way that this thing kind of evolved is, as I mentioned, the biofiltration basins, right? We have a flat site, so we ended up with these 38 to 44 foot deep landscape buffers along Minot Road. So the project is going to appear with a real large setback from Minot Road, and I think we generously landscape those that Annika will kind of touch on more. Uh-oh, too fast.
Hi, Annika Carpenter with Ripley Design Group, the landscape architecture firm for the project. So we tried to use a wide variety of plant materials, varying textures and colors of the foliage and the flowering. And then also I think it was very beneficial that we do have a large setback along the frontage where we can provide a lot of landscape planting before the homes occur, so that as you drive down Minor, that you don't see the houses as prominently on the street. We did try to place trees everywhere where we could, and we also are providing a corral style fencing across the frontage to demarc the bioretention basins. So, and that's pretty much it on the landscape.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mark Rutherford with WHA Architects. I think staff covered the floor plans and kind of just all the data on that very well. So what I'd like to just kind of start out with, as far as the configuration and the planning of the homes in the site plan, and this is to get, the goal on this is to get a higher density, smaller lot type of product, single family detached, living at grade, 2 cars in the enclosed garage, and everyone with separation from their neighbor, their own rear yard, curb appeal, all of that. As Andy mentioned, 6 of the 17 lots will have a full apron. The other 11 just have the parking in the garage. There is guest parking on site. And then with the architecture, we have, as mentioned, 3 floor plans and a total of 10 different elevations for 17 lots. So plan 1 is the one that has 4 elevational styles to that, just because the way they face onto the center drive aisle. And then there's 3 elevations for the plans 2 and 3. And we picked kind of an eclectic grouping of architecture, traditional styles. I think you'll find throughout Walnut Creek, traditional and just providing a varied streetscape with the different roof forms, different roof pitches, different materials. I mean, we have brick, stone, stucco, board and bat, lap siding. We have a pretty much a complete mix of for just, like I say, 17 homes. And we feel that we've created, a very interesting enclave of homes. And I think, and there's, in addition to the, like I say, 10 different elevations for 17 homes, there also is 6 color material schemes for the project. So quite a variety. It's definitely not cookie cutter. And the layout of the homes themselves is more of a motor court. And that's in order to achieve a smaller lot as opposed to your standard front-loaded, 4,000, 5,000 square foot lot going along your typical street grid. This site's not really large enough to accommodate that type of a layout and achieve any kind of reasonable lot count. So it's very typical. You might see it in infill sites throughout the Bay Area. Definitely see the motor court, single-family detached, two-story homes in any of the newer master plan communities throughout the East Bay. So it's working with that goal to achieve single-family detached at a higher density, but still all the attributes of living in a single-family home with front yard, rear yard, and the design of the Plan 1 specifically was designed to activate, as staff mentioned, that center aisle so it doesn't feel, say, like a gauntlet, so to speak. All the front doors face onto that center aisle just to activate it, eyes on the street, and doesn't present itself with a side elevation to that main street with, the less articulated elevation and side yard fence. So, like I say, all the plans were specifically designed to fit on this project, and I think it achieves a high quality product, single family detached. Someone that doesn't, or maybe can't afford, a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot lot with a larger home. But these, as Andy mentioned, are 3 and 4 bedroom homes, so very comfortable for families, whether they're moving up, moving down, or just buying their first home. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Was that sort of the total presentation?
I think that.
Was there anything else you?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that concludes our presentation. I did want to just make just a remark about Simmer, the planner, our planner on the project has really been great. And I work in a lot of different jurisdictions, and I don't give out lip service to folks who don't deserve it. And I just want to say she's been tough, but very fair and also very responsive. So I really appreciate her work on this project. So
We appreciate her too.
and with that, if there are any questions from the commission.
Great, thank you. So we'll go in different order. How about Vice Chair Killian? Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah. I want to start with the site planning issues. First of all, starting with the bioretention area, that seems to be the largest area out front. Is there a way that if you made the streets impervious or pervious, you could reduce the bioretention areas?
The entrance, we'd made some portions of them, so the paver entrances are pervious. So we made that portion pervious. We could, I presume if we did, all of it in pervious pavers, it would have a slight reduction. I can have our civil engineers kind of talk more to that. Obviously, one of the challenges is that's not going to eliminate the yard and roof imperviousness portion. And a portion of the sizing on the bioretention is obviously a function of the percentage rule on hard surface, but in addition to that, it's also dimensional in that there's a hydromodification function to those bioretention basins as well. So kind of given the flat nature of the site, right, all that happens underneath that surface area, and that hydromodification still has to occur.
Is the engineer here?
Yep, they sure are, yep.
Civil engineer?
Yeah, Andrew Duarte from DK is here. He can answer that probably a little better.
Yeah, so just to touch on that question, so like Andy was saying, part of that is the bioretention aspect. So this is the actual treatment of the impervious surfaces. Those basins also serve for detention. So you may lose some area there if you went with pervious streets, but there is a detention factor involved in there that would factor into sizing.
Right, but that all would be reduced, would it not? I mean, the streetscape, if that was all a pervious surface?
There would be a reduction, yep. Don't have numbers on that.
Okay. And is there any reason you can't extend areas over the bioretention areas? For example, parking spaces, if it was suspended over the bioretention areas?
I'm not sure the guidebook would allow that. I could look into that for you, but I have not seen that before.
I know, but being creative, is that a possibility? I mean, you still have the same bioretention area and still doing cleaning and everything. So is that possible?
That would be dictated by the county's guidebook.
I don't think they say anything about it, so I'm just asking some creative questions here.
No, that's certainly an interesting concept. We'd love to explore that in other projects. The challenge obviously would be, right, that eventually the soil material has to be replaced because it's going to fill up with sediment. And so if you've got like a structure over it, you'd have to remove that structure. So that would be fairly challenging.
Okay. Staying with the streetscape, is there, I know you have certain fire truck requirements and so forth, but on the ends of the Ts, for example, in front of lot 17, is there any reason that you need to have those hammerheads there? And can that street just be 24 feet going into the homes?
So it will, yeah, the turnarounds wouldn't work then if we didn't have those turnarounds like that. Yeah, we didn't add the additional street.
Okay, now the turnarounds for who?
The turnarounds for the exiting for, so all those courts, right, the motor courts, right, those are all designed to kind of function so each unit can back out of its respective driveways, as well as the dimensional width. I mean, you don't need that. There's no fire truck turnaround at the end of those kind of, let's call them
All right,
Ts.
so a person could still come in and turn around in a driveway and back out. Just, I mean, they're doing it obviously on the street.
Right.
So you possibly could eliminate some of that streetscape or the street?
You could, if you turned it into driveway with an easement over the top of it, you potentially could,
Okay, so that's a possibility. At the end, say in front of lot 9, again, the same question. Is it possible to maintain the 24-foot driveway or street width and pop out some land in front of lot number 9, giving them possibly more landscape or a longer driveway?
that one, we looked at that actual solution, and that, based on the fire truck radius, that didn't
You
work.
wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we looked at like a bump out or some other thing to like put a tree out, something to kind of add additional green space in there, and that couldn't work.
Okay. Your driveways, what material, I know they're concrete, are they colored concrete? or
They're
is it-
colored, scored concrete.
They are colored, okay. On the house layout, is there any reason, for example, on lots number 1, 17, and 16, can those be flipped to help with the driveway so there's no conflict with driveway against driveway?
That would make it challenging for lot one to kind of back out, right? So lot one is gonna back out towards that hammerhead, towards Minor Road, and then kind of make a 3-point turn out. So if you flipped it, then you're just backing into that other driveway.
No, lot 1, when I say flip it, so the driveway is going to be in the opposite, it would be north. It would have the same drive back out as it does now, but it's just not right against the driveway of lot 2.
Yeah, we'd have to explore that in kind of a little more detail. It'd be a little challenging to do it on the fly.
Okay. And can lots, for example, 3, 4, and 15, can they be rotated so that, again, the driveway is on the middle street? I know you initially said you wanted to have the front doors there, but again, if they're rotated, again, give them the opportunity to have a driveway of 6 to 8 feet?
Yeah, so that would eliminate the ability to have front doors out on the street. We'd have to destroy the floor plan.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
it is possible then, and perhaps they'll have a larger front yard and a larger driveway.
I'm not sure how the front yard would increase. Right, we try to maximize that landscaping space along that center drive by pushing those houses over and maximizing that front yard, that entrance feature, so that we could have some areas for trees and so forth. So we have the ability to push those houses closer to the street, minimizing those front yards and expanding their rear yards. But we thought it was a better design solution to open up that as a larger visual space and add landscaping, kind of more common area landscaping.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I guess what I'm proposing is just rotating it so that you're not decreasing the front yard. What you're doing is allowing a driveway apron there.
So to put the driveway onto Abigail Place then?
Correct.
Well, then we'd kind of lose the design concept of the landscaping and what we try to do, just as a side note, right, what we try to do on that main entrance is to not have driveways, not have garages, to have front doors and landscaping and sidewalk only. So it has a more pedestrian, a little smaller scale feel.
Okay.
So that was an intentional, right, because we had to create a whole additional plan in order to do that. We could have put plan 2 there, put a driveway in on it. We just thought that would look cluttered and busy and, so we tried to keep kind of that open and at a little cleaner pedestrian orientation.
Okay. You show the mailboxes kind of along lot 14 and 15. Was there any other locations, for example, coming in at the initial driveway? It would be on the west side. Is there an opportunity perhaps to put the mailbox there so it's not in front of somebody's front door? Or was there any other spot that possibly they could be relocated to?
Yeah, we can certainly explore some additional locations for mailboxes.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps between lots 4 and 3.
I'm kind of curious, you have a couple lots, lot 7, lot 11, lot 2, where you have well, it's dimensioned as a 3.5-foot side yard, but by the time you get the fence there and so forth, it's probably a 3-foot. And that's where you're showing the trash containers. I'm kind of curious how a person is going to get to the trash, given that the trash containers are 32 inches.
You'll have to pull them out one at a time.
So how does a person get, for example, if you have the waste and then the recycle and then the garbage?
So
You know, a person wants to bring out the kitchen garbage bag, he's got to pull out 2 garbage cans to be able to.
Well, right, I mean, obviously that lot's gonna have to be somewhat strategic. You're gonna have to, enter in through the garage, on the outside gate to get to the recycling and the rear yard, the man door in the garage to get to it, unless you wanna pull them out.
Okay. All right, I just had a couple questions, I guess, for landscape and then architecture. Just on the landscape, you have a couple elm trees along the front. Is there any reason they seem to be spaced out? You couldn't add a 3rd tree at 40 feet on center so that there's 3 and 3 on either side? Is that possible?
Well, on the left side, there's a pipe, but we could probably add a 3rd and kind of squeeze them together a little bit further. So we could do that. Yeah, I can look at adding a tree to either side.
Okay. And do you think the bioretention, besides being the front door, the window to the project, that's really your only opportunity for landscaping? I know you've done as much as you can for the interior. So what are the thoughts of making that, rather than just your typical bioretention that after a couple years, is basically a dirt pit, to step it up a little bit and do some creative design with different mulching and gravel or something. So again, that's really your only opportunity to really
Yeah,
for you to get
so-
creative on the landscaping there.
So with another project that we worked with the city of Walnut Creek with bioretention, we did actually try to cantilever a deck over the bioretention area by just a few feet, and we were told that we could not do that by the city. They had us remove the cantilevered deck off of the bio because we couldn't count anything underneath it as the biofiltration. Also, we had to remove the cobble or the gravel that we put in the biofiltration. We had some boulders and some cobble, and we had to remove that as well because we would have to find we'd have to offset it by making the bioretention bigger if we had anything other than some plants. So,
Where did that come from? I can understand large boulders, but gravel and
yep,
mulch.
we had to remove it all.
Okay.
So,
You may want to look at it. I think that is allowed. But do you know, is there any wiggle room in the bioretention area that if you were to put in trees and remove, say, 16 square feet for each tree out of the calculations, to allow a little bit more of a grove effect in there?
yeah, I have to check. You know, each jurisdiction is very different about adding trees into biofiltration. I'd have to see if there's a liner underneath this one and how it could be done. But possibly you brought up the fact about the pervious pavement and offsetting. You know, maybe there's a possibility that we can wiggle in some more spaces for trees
Okay.
along the frontage, so.
And on your rail fence, it's just a wood rail fence. Is there any possibility you can borrow some from the architecture, or maybe have some masonry pilasters or whatever to kind of, again, elevate that front entry look? Is that possible?
That is a possibility. We were just trying to kind of keep a little bit of a rural appearance factor to the site, but that would be a possibility. We can look into that.
All right, great, thank you. I just had a couple questions for the architect.
Good evening.
Hi. Could you kind of explain, I was a little bit on the modern prairie style. As I look at it, if you remove well, not even that, but I didn't see too much difference between that and the contemporary. In fact, the contemporary had more of the window grids that I would think would be on the modern prairie than the other one. And I really don't see that much difference between the two. Could you kind of walk me through your thoughts on trying to develop the two architectural styles? Right now, I'm looking at Plan 1, the front elevations.
Right. I'd say, you know, the idea was to still work with a hipped, low-pitched roof style and just kind of work with some different materials. I think both window grids work, whether with prairie or a modern, more of a modern style. I think it's just trying to really, because these four homes kind of front onto that street there, to provide a variety of use of materials in different places, whether it be on the second floor, first floor, but still working with the variety of materials. And so I think it provides enough of a difference between the two to provide the four different elevations we're looking for in that gauntlet.
Okay. On the farmhouse style, and right now I'm looking at, I guess it's your title page, you have the Plan 1, 2, and 3 showing the three different styles. But I'm a little bit bothered by the farmhouse where you have your stone element. It just seems you have a large two-story wall, and the way you use the stone element is just taking it right up to the windows. And it doesn't seem to, you know, when they were building with stone back then, that's probably not how they would have used the stone.
Well, they probably wouldn't have built houses like this back then either.
Right. But again, your stone just seems.
The reason for this stone on Plan 3, if you were to look at the site plan and see how Plan 3 is configured on the site plan, that corner is very visible from the cul-de-sac. Kind of the motor court. And so it's really just providing a strong anchor to that. I don't have an arrow or anything to point it to, but if you look at the Plan 3, okay, so here, this is the Plan 3. This is Plan 3 right there on Lot 13, and so what you're seeing is the, okay, thank you. What you're seeing is this corner of the home right here. And so as you're driving in, it kind of gives a strong focal point of an enhancement of that Plan 3 as you're looking at it from this, like I mentioned earlier, and just kind of explaining the motor court configuration of the lots. It's not your typical lot where you're looking at the front door. The Plan 3 in the motor court fits back here, actually has the largest rear yard of all the homes. It is the largest home, but it has a little bit stronger need for curb appeal as you drive in, and that's the reason for that stone there.
Okay. And then my last question is the front doors on the, I guess it's the right side. I'm looking at the elevation on the modern farmhouse again, and even the modern prairie. What bothered me is your comment about it appears the front door is underneath a cantilevered section of the house above it. And the front door is almost secondary, like you're going into a, back door as opposed to being the front door. Is there any way to strengthen that front door, or what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I was looking to just provide a little bit different way of accenting the front door, drawing attention to it from the street as you're coming in, activate, like I said, that central street. We could bring that cantilever down, but I just felt I didn't want to encroach further into that side yard towards the street. I'd rather have the cantilever, which throws the shadow on it and draws attention to that front door itself. The front door is recessed slightly also into the floor plan.
Okay. And my last question is, all these homes are within 100 square feet of each other. Did you ever look at a little bit more variety? Perhaps there was maybe a 2,000 square foot home and going up to, again, maybe a 26. Every home is 24 to 2,500 square feet, and there's just no variety in size. And again, if perhaps a little bit more variety, you could still accomplish your 17 units, but maybe I'll allow a little bit more breathing room.
Well, I think with these plans, we're trying to work with giving each home the opportunity for a family, 3 to 4 bedrooms. There are in different configurations. Some of them work with secondary bedrooms on the first floor, and just some of them have different orientations and lot sizes. And I think there is the variety there. I think the square footage does vary, maybe not a lot, but there is a variety.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Newsom, questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the initial question, kind of adding on to what he said, was with those bioswales, have you actually coordinated the planting plan with the civil plan? And I mean, the renderings show very lush, like there's bushes down there, but in the planting plan, it says it's just straight up all juncus. Is there intention to have more variety in there, like he said? I mean, that's your one big play. Is that something you could look at?
We could look at that, and we can provide more varied landscape in the bioswale.
Thanks. The other question I have is, I noticed that one of the concessions or one of the needs is to make the bioswale deeper. This is really a question for civil, but how deep is that? What are the slopes? And when you're walking down the sidewalk, are you going to actually fall into that thing? I mean, how steep are those slopes and how deep is it?
So it's a 3-to-1 slope down to there. There is an overbuild off the edge of the sidewalk. It's not deep. I believe it's 14 inches deep down to the
Okay, so
top of
it's just
soil layer.
14 inches, and there's some kind of a low rail. Okay, right,
Yes, and it's fenced.
okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Valia.
Probably you mentioned this before, but do we have any visitors parking here in this complex?
Yeah, obviously, in addition to the garage and the apron parking, right, there's 3 additional spaces along along Abigail Place, the main access road, plus approximately about 10 spaces along Minor Road frontage.
So how many parking spaces in all, sorry?
All in all, 59. So 59 spaces is 2 times 17 plus.
That's the private space.
Yeah, those are private spaces. The 2 apron spaces for 2 times 6, right, 12, the private spaces. And then guest parking is 3 inside the subdivision along Abigail, and then 10 along Minor Road.
And now I guess we've covered most of the architectural questions. I mean, but I still have some. I still don't understand the project completely because I'm missing sections, I'm missing relations between one of the elevations next to the other elevation. Is that something you are going to be able to provide?
Yeah, we have a rendering, we have an exterior rendering, but we do, and we have several sections in the plan set. You're looking for like architectural sections through the plan site? Is that what for the site plan, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I mean, sections of the whole thing. I mean, I come in, that streetscape, what does it look like? Not the individual houses. What does the streetscape look like?
Yeah, I can go. Which one? What? Sorry. Yeah, it's the first sheet. Get to it. Yeah, I'm sorry, we have. So there was a rendering that we had commenced.
It looks really tight, huh? Yeah, that's my concern, actually. I mean, yeah, densities. Sometimes I think that probably we're forcing a building type into a lot that does not allow that building type. Like, we're forcing single families into a lot that doesn't have the dimensions for 17 single families. But, I mean, it's allowed. I mean, our hands are tied. There's not much we can argue on that, but probably this lot is for a different building type. Probably this lot is for a 4, 5, 6-story building, and lots of green around it. It's too tight, too dense. But I'm going into the comments now, so yeah, I would like to see sections for the next time, and I would like to see that streetscape. I mean, several renderings of streetscape, especially where 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10 meet. I would love to see that. I think that's so tight in there, but it's just perception from what I see on the floor plans. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Valia. Guess it's my turn. Thought you were off the hook.
Not so.
Now, I tend to ask crazy questions
Shoot.
because I'm looking for all the different options. It's meant to spur thinking of different options. So, one question is, well, I'm going to go back to a statement I think you made, the missing middle of housing. Are you able to tell me what you think each one of these single-family homes will sell for, other than the very low-income one? Do you have a target price?
Quite honestly, we'll sell them right for what the market will bear, and given interest rates and where they're at today. If you can tell me where they're at when I come to sell the project, I will tell you where I'll sell them at. How about that?
I'm guessing probably $1.5 million each minimum.
Perhaps I think that's a little high, but in that range.
So the reason I ask you that, since you brought up missing in the middle, does this have to be a single-family home development? So when you're trying to get more housing developed on a given lot, one of the projects I think about is the Citrus Walk over in the Citrus Shopping Center. Those are townhomes.
Yep.
And so they were able to put a lot of homes into a fairly small piece of land. And the way and it's a good-looking project, actually.
Agreed.
And so one of the reasons they were able to do that so effectively is they're not single-family homes. I mean, and I get, right, people want that American dream, the house and the white picket fence and everything, but was there ever any thought to non-single-family homes on this project?
We, given the general plan designation, quite honestly, we did not look at non-single family, right? As you mentioned, the city through the state regulations, hands are tied, and at the same point, right, our hands are tied to a certain extent without doing general plan amendment, zoning amendments, all that stuff. On a site this size, it just didn't, given the city's, quite honestly, the reluctance to increase densities outside of state regulations, inside existing communities, we didn't look at that.
Okay, here comes crazy question number 2. You talked about a desire to have this large setback from Minert, and you've got the large bio basins there. Was there any ever thought to essentially moving lots 14, 15, 3, and 4 to be alongside Minert? Then you would drive in and you would have this big open court area where you could be more creative with landscaping and the bioretention issues, maybe be able to save a few highly protected trees. Was there any thought? I mean, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, because you guys explained it, but did you ever think about maybe that alternative?
Yes and no, right? I mean, the challenge that was immediately demonstrated by kind of the civil engineering team is the water has to go downhill. So the only way you can get the water into the biofiltration basin, clean it, and store it, which is the more challenging aspect, is to have that at the lowest point of the site. So that really then forced the rest of the site plan to evolve the way it did.
Okay, great. All right, the rest of my questions probably aren't crazy questions.
Okay.
One question as a side note. So when we look at this second page in the package, it looks great. I look at that and I go, oh, walking up to that, those are, and I think the homes are very nice homes. People are going to find these very nice homes to buy. Will I see anything in the project that kind of looks like this picture in terms of, is this to scale of any part of the project? Like, would this represent what I would see if I came down your new street looking at lots 8, 9, and 10? Or is this really showing a lot more space between the homes scale-wise than I'd really see?
I believe the scale, as far as the space between the homes is accurate. I just don't think we have that particular plotting in that. But I mean, if you look at the rendering, for example, right, that's an accurate portrayal of what you'll see.
Right. I think you look at Plan 1, that's faces onto Abigail Place, and so it doesn't align with the other front elevations. It's just showing you a sampling of the front.
Got it. Yeah, I think sort of similar to Commissioner Valia, when we get to the final design review hearing, the more we could see that 3D rendering of what's the project actually going to look like if I was walking through it. But yeah, and this is great if we could somehow zoom in and, kind of like, can I plot myself down on one of these little hammerheads and see what it's going to look like? Or can I get a little bit more down, Angelique, towards the end there and see what those houses look like at the end, the actual ones. To really help us visualize, okay, I get it. This is what it's going to look like. Because when I look at these projects, I'm a member at large on the commission. I'm not an architect, so I look at this as, you know, the average Walnut Creek person wanting to buy a home or walking through the neighborhood. What's this going to look like? Is this something people want to actually look at or buy? Is it nice? Do I want to be around it? That's how I look at all of these things. All right, parking. So I live on an infill development. It's not as dense, but I live at the end of the court with the Hammerhead, with my other neighbor, and a narrower street leading up to it. And when you start getting cars left out in front of the garages and stuff, it becomes a nightmare. You can't move.
Right.
It causes neighborhood issues. Will there be, I don't know if you said there was going to be an HOA, but will there be CC&Rs that designate certain areas as, these are non-parking? And if they are, will they be signed and marked as non-parking areas to make sure there isn't this, collision of cars? You know, people like to put their cars outside the garage and like to put all their stuff in the garage like it's an extra room.
Right.
Right?
No, that's a great question. So, right, so obviously the areas that are not allowed for parking are to be red striped. Those are easily enforceable by any citizen calls City Walnut Creek and they tow the car. And like, if it's in a fire lane, I can attest, I've watched it happen. They tow the car in like 20 minutes. In addition, as I've mentioned in the public format meeting that I had with the neighbors, there will be CC&Rs, there will be an HOA, there will be a management company, and one of the restrictions, and we've done this on a lot of projects where we have, you know, tighter parking, multifamily, small at single family, is that we will have a condition in the CC&Rs that requires the homeowner to keep the garage clear, to have it, and then there'll be an enforcement mechanism for penalties if they don't comply. And one of the questions came up, well, how does that really work in real life? And that's a super legitimate question. It tends to work fairly well because the neighbors, if you're parking, if I know you've got two cars and I'm always seeing a third car in the guest spot or something like that, or I see that your rock band tends to come on Wednesday nights and play till 11, you'll know that, right? You'll know that, and there's a third-party management company, so it's not like you have to knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, clean out the garage, buddy. So there'll be a third-party management company that has that ability.
Yeah, like on my development, the reason it works out is because the driveways are big enough that you can use the 3-car garage as another room, and you can put your 3 cars on the driveway. Right. And I'm kind of looking at some of this. I think Commissioner Killian was asking, hey, can I have a 2-foot driveway? When you get to that area or with these hammerheads, then the car's out in front of the garage door, which, the homeowner's going to want to do.
Right.
It just becomes tough.
Right.
So
Agreed.
anything you can do to kind of mitigate that would be great.
Right.
I think those are my questions. Thank you. All right, just before we go to the next phase, any other questions from the commissioners? Great. Okay, so now we are at public comment for this project. So this is your opportunity. Are we doing 2 or 3 minutes each, Mr. Secretary?
I believe the cards say 3 minutes.
Okay, so this is your opportunity to address the commission. If there's anyone in council chambers who wishes to speak to the commission, if you haven't filled out a speaker card, please do. And if you would just line up behind the lectern at the end here for anyone who wants to come up and address the commission. We do ask that you keep your comments to the project and within the 3 minutes. And, and please introduce yourself as well. Thank you. Anybody in chambers who wishes to address us? Yep, come on up. Don't be shy.
All right, good evening. I appear before this commission to request
Could you
denial.
introduce yourself first, please? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I'm sorry. My name is Mark Peters, and I live on LaSalle Drive,
Great, thank you.
behind this development. So I'm requesting denial of this project, despite the applicant's broad claims of privilege under current law. The fact remains that this commission still retains jurisdiction over 5 matters of design. So specifically, the applicant has failed to mitigate several negative impacts to adjacent properties. Let me start with trees. So the applicant proposes to destroy 27 trees which are wholly located on the 2-acre parcel. Now, many of these are highly protected, and the largest one is a valley oak. It's approximately 65 feet tall with a 38-inch diameter trunk, and you know the diameter is measured high. Now, this is identified as tree number 7 on their arborist report, and their arborist referred to this tree as a significant feature of the landscape, said it was in excellent condition and highly suitable for preservation. So how about this? Instead of plundering this historic asset, why doesn't Caliber take the $75,000 that you have to pay to the city to destroy this tree, and why don't you try to relocate that tree? We have space for it, and we're just a few feet away from it. Now, in the matter of privacy, these proposed structures will loom over our backyards as they sit about 5 feet, only 5 feet from the rear lot line. Now, we strenuously object to this loss of privacy, with our future neighbors free to observe our properties at will from their second-story perch. The applicant could have mitigated this loss by retention of numerous healthy trees or other boundary possibilities. At the very least, will this commission require perimeter fencing not less than 8 feet high? Now, I want to move on to the matter of parking and public safety. This proposed development lies 2,200 feet southwest of Oak Grove Middle School along very busy Minot Road. So students who are en route to school by foot or by bicycle each morning are going to have to weave their way through the congestion of many cars simultaneously jockeying to exit Abigail Place along its single narrow point of egress. Now, further hazard arises from the 10 new spaces along Minot Road, which are up for grabs for anyone, sure to be used by the new residents. Unfortunately, people who are walking or driving or riding is just, while being distracted, is a fact of life these days. And, I see this as a vehicle versus pedestrian or cyclist tragedy that's just waiting to happen because they're so close to the school, and you have this combination of cars trying to get out of a congested area, and you're jockeying with people and bicycles. I don't know, it just makes me very unhappy. So I urge the city not to throw up their hands in defeat against Caliber and protect the current homeowners from this assault on our properties, our homes, and safe school access. And finally, to Caliber, just because you can get away with something doesn't make it right.
That's my husband. I'm proud of him. I'm Susan Peters. We live at 2340. I wanted to say thank you so much to the members of this group for asking some of the hard questions tonight, because I think that you can all see that this is a very poorly conceived plan. Too many houses are being shoved into a space that it was not designed for, and it is going to have a tremendous impact on our community, our neighborhood, public safety, the schools in the area. It's poorly designed, and I really encourage you to do whatever you can to change it or oppose it. As an educator, next year I'll celebrate 50 years of public service as a school teacher and a principal. So I am very much an advocate for housing, and especially for housing for those most in need of it. This is not a project that is helping the city of Walnut Creek or those most in need of housing. These houses are for the elite. They will be priced for the elite, and it's a plan that's getting by on the guise of offering one house that will be affordable, and I really am not sure to who, because if you look at the numbers, I don't know how a family of 4 can purchase one of these houses. Then the other issue is, what family wants to live in a house that has a 5-foot backyard? A 5-foot backyard is not a backyard. A 4-foot side yard. These are not yards. So we're being deceived by this information. Oh, we've planned carefully so they'll have a little yard they can sit in. They'll be lucky if they can sit on a little table out there. So the question I ask you, where will the city draw the line to protect our environment? This is happening all over Walnut Creek. Where will you step up to say no? We are not going to let people take advantage of this law. It may have been passed at the state. We understand we need more housing. But you can say no, and you can say no to these concessions and waivers, especially when you're looking at 12 versus 17 homes. Go with the 12 homes. Say, no, we're not going with 17. We're not going with all these waivers. And then use your half-cent sales tax that City of Walnut Creek is trying to pass in November. You're going to have, what, $11 million a year over 10 years? I am sure that will pay for the cost of the lawsuit to defeat this proposal. So, and I will work, and I will work with the schools and the communities to let the people in Walnut Creek know. Northern Walnut Creek has not received the services that they need from the City of Walnut Creek for a very long time. We've been a stepchild. We've lived in Northern Walnut Creek the entire time. I've been there 26 years. We don't have schools provided by the City of Walnut Creek. What do we have provided by the Walnut Creek in our Northern Walnut Creek? You don't have to answer that. I realize it's the Design Commission. But I want the city to understand that I'm asking those questions, and I will actively advocate against any sales tax increase if they are not looking at what's happening property, Seven Hills, other places within the city that they need to look. Now, the tree. That tree is my tree, okay? Nobody's lived in that Cox property for years. We just remodeled our backyard to watch that tree. It's beautiful. It's full of squirrels. It's a healthy tree. It's worth $75,000. Move the tree closer to our property, move it onto our property, but provide something. We need a screen. The landscaping plan, I've just become a gardener. The trees that are being put in will not provide a screen. That's my time. Okay, what else do I have to say? Redesign the bio basin. Okay, 8,000 square feet of a basin in the front. Please take a look at the houses at 8, 9, and 10.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to ask
And
you
I'm
to
out.
end.
All right, I just ask you, please scrutinize this. This is not a plan for our community. It's not helping anyone. It's not providing housing for the neediest people, and it is encroaching on our privacy and our safety in our community.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else in chambers who wishes to speak?
My name's Amanda Pinkham, and my husband and I are directly next door on Minert, so probably the most inconvenienced of all of this. We have 2 young kids, so I pretty much share all of their concerns. The traffic is going to be greatly increased. The parking, I'm curious if the 10 spots outside Minert include our sidewalk. I'm also curious if we can get a copy of the arborist report, because I'm pretty sure that the corner lot there is our tree. So I just wanted to see that. Also curious about a retaining wall, because our property, I don't remember the numbers, but like on the left side of this whole thing is what looks into our backyard. So how high is this retaining wall? Will bedrooms be looking literally right into our yard? That huge tree, I'm pretty sure an owl lives in it that we listen to every night. We also love that tree, so that's a big concern. And then health and safety. Sorry, I don't like speaking in front of people. I feel that there will be a lot of rodents and other things displaced from this coming right into our property, so I'm also curious if there's anything taken into effect for that. Like if we get infestations, are we responsible for that? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So trees, parking, rodents, privacy.
Great. Thank you very much.
And safety of our children with all of this traffic. My kids in the next 2 years will be walking to Oak Grove, so that increases a lot of that safety. All right, thank you.
So I'll just point out that in terms of the arborist report, all of the materials are available online on the city website. You can watch a video back of this meeting, see the agenda, and all the materials that the commission has is available to everybody. Great. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak?
I'm Kevin Lambert. Lived in Walnut Creek for 23 years now in the same area, so we live on Arkell Road. And my big concern is actually garbage trucks. So as people have mentioned, this is really close to Oak Grove Middle School, and I've noticed similar cluster housing on Bancroft and Mayhew. Cluster housing right on that corner, and I commute pretty much there every day, and I've noticed that as the garbage trucks go in, they have to go in straight in, and they can't turn around. It's so tight. They back up right into traffic. So my concern is there's going to be 3 garbage trucks going in every week into this property, and they're going to back up into Minor, which Minor is kind of an overflow of Treat Boulevard for people going to and from work, and it's going to, people go to school. So I think that is a safety concern that the city should look at, and I can encourage you to consider whether that's really safe to have such a tight space, so that people have to, garbage trucks have to back in and out 3 times every week, 156 times in the year to address that. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Simmer's been, well, this is the theme, she's been exemplary in her role. My wife and I and several members of the
Could
community.
you introduce yourself,
I'm
please?
sorry, Steve
Thank you.
Bond. Yeah.
Thank you.
My wife and I and several members of the community have, as soon as we got word of this early, our role was to inform the neighborhood. Just let them know it's coming, let them think about it. I appreciate your investment and your passion. It's clear. You guys don't take this role lightly. So it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it's not going to be through anything I do. But there's a theme that I kind of wanted to kind of throw over this a little bit. The tree in question, Samara, is that 7? Tree number 7. And I've spoken many times with Samara. Steve Cox planted that, and he and his dad planted that. I interviewed Steve with a video camera before he sold the place. And he lived a life there. Barron got his first kiss in that field. Kiko Garcia, 1979 World Series, should have been the MVP, played baseball in that field. He's a citizen at large here. Lives were lived there. So the theme I'm trying to bring out is if we can bring the past into this design, and I liked where you were going, Mr. Killian, as it related to the bioretention, and maybe using different materials instead of the wood. There's a brick feature on the Cox house. I'm a brick nut. But there's a brick feature there, and those materials can be retained and integrated into something befitting the history that he had. The tree number 7, I mentioned this summer, and she seemed to think it was a good idea, and it seems to be getting traction here, is replanting it in the BIOS retention. Beautiful oak tree. And it really makes a statement of an older community. It's a good blend for what might be really aesthetically pleasing. So that's about it. Roots and leaves, that's the theme, right? We're talking about trees and things. So somehow reaching out, and I understand you have to do what you got to do, and somehow bringing the roots into this. I guess 20 seconds left. I don't know what else to say. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in chambers who wishes to address the commission before we see who's out there on Zoom land?
My name is John de Beaumont. I live on LaSalle Drive on the west side of the street. I've been there 50 years. I've lived in Walnut Creek all my life. I met my wife at Mel's Drive-In years ago. But I understand this problem, but I don't understand why the city now has to, they downsize the zoning for this property. They have to upsize somewhere else, don't they? As I read Prop 330, State Board, that 330, do you know that? In other words, they downsized from 10,000 square foot lots down to 2547. And the Senate Bill 330 says you have to upsize property somewhere else, the same amount of property. Have they thought about that? Another thing is I don't understand why, and a lot of work went into this project, I see that. But they never mentioned, the developers never mentioned the homeowners at all. They never mentioned the people that are in back, the size, or nothing. On Mayhew, there's a development, which is in the city of Walnut Creek, but there's commercial on one side, commercial in the back, and commercial on the other. That's not a problem, but they should have took into consideration some of these people's feelings on some of this. But I'm really interested in, and waivers, do they get as many waivers as they want? They got, as I see it, 15 waivers here. They could waiver it down to nothing. Thanks for my time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone else in chambers want to come up and speak? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Christiana Loza, and pretty much my concerns about the safety, the trees, and all of that are the same. It doesn't affect me as much as it does my neighbors. My one concern is when you're going to remove these trees, when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it during nesting season, or are you going to try and make revisions to where you remove these trees when squirrels and owls and things are not nesting, birds? Secondly, are these homes going to be required to be lived in by the people who purchase them, or are they going to be able to be rented out? You know, how does that affect everybody? And also the low-income home. How low income are we talking? I mean, there's not any way that we can get some type of amount, like a high or a low range? Pardon me? It's calculated based on. Like, well, if, in other words, like in today's current value.
Please complete your comments, and the applicant will respond to.
Today's current value, is there a way we can, like, if people were to purchase these houses today, based on the interest rates that we have today, could we get a high or a low range? And like I said, the concern is, you know, other thing, is there any endangered species? I know there's a squirrel that's endangered. Is that, you know, those species live in this area? And is there any provisions taken to check into those different items? So really, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, anybody else in chambers? Mr. Secretary, do we have anybody on Zoom? If you're on Zoom and you wish to address the commission, please electronically raise your hand on Zoom.
We have 3 electronic hands raised. Shall I bring in Everett Haberman?
Sure.
Everett, can we hear you?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great. I'm Everett Haberman. I live on LaSalle Drive, and I just would like to kind of summarize for you some of the things, because most people have covered what I had. But the real problem with this is it's just simply not a practical development. You've pointed out a lot of things, for example, the garbage cans, where the resident's going to have to move individual garbage cans out. I know nobody in the audience there is going to be willing to do that at their own home. But there's a bunch of other glitches probably that we haven't surfaced yet that are going to make a really frustrating life. The garbage trucks going in there, backing out, the garbage drivers we have in our neighborhood are fairly careless, and that's going to be a real problem. The driveway safety, are people going to be able to park on the street at all? If not, they're not going to be able to park in their driveway. Where are their guests going to go? They're going to be 3 parking spots for guests for 17 houses, assuming that most of the people there will have children. Most of them will have, when they turn 16 to 18, have a car. You're going to have lots of cars with no place to go. That's going to be a real problem. The whole idea of setting up a design to fit what was probably normally for 3 houses, 17, is just filled with problems. The other thing is people have pointed out is they have no consideration whatsoever for the privacy or the established community around them. This does not fit in with the established community. Now, I realize that's not a valid criteria, but it is a fact. I mean, I've been there for 47 years and watched the community develop over that period of time. But I think the architectural plans, you do have a no on that. You can veto their architectural plans. Maybe they don't need 17, maybe 10 would be a nice number, maybe 2 or 3, which is what it's really designed for. Anyway, that's my point. All of my colleagues there did a good job of making the points, but there's a whole bunch of really valid concerns that are within the jurisdiction, your jurisdiction, and I'd really appreciate it if you would consider them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do we have more speakers?
We have 2 more. Is it Brett Pollution?
Hi, yes, it's Brett Paluzzian. I live at 1995 Arkell Court. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of topics. One is the privacy issue. I know it's been talked about a lot. I do think there's a significant impact to the neighbors around there. Think of families, children playing in the backyard, and now they're being observed by neighbors, and there doesn't seem to be any consideration by the developer or the architect or landscape architect for that matter to come up with a solution to deal with maintaining privacy, which is something that those neighbors have frankly come to expect, and it's something that could affect their property value in the future. And I think that's something of a concern. The other one has to do with parking. Minot Road is used quite frequently already for motorhome parking for about 72 hours before somebody kicks them out. On occasion, there's buses, there are boat trailers, and I think it's unreasonable to assume that all of these new residences are going to use their 2-car garages for parking their cars. The reality is they might park 1 car in there and they're going to park the rest of the cars on the street, and 10 stalls on the street is not going to be adequate. And so what you're going to end up with is the entire strip of Minot is going to have parking on it, which I'm willing to bet will bleed into the adjacent areas. So I would implore the city planning to take a look at alternatives. One is the impact on that. Do we go to parking permits, and how are you going to enforce all that? I can actually see it where people don't use their garages for parking and decide to park out in the community somewhere and just walk. That's going to exacerbate safety issues and it's going to exacerbate a lot of traffic issues on Minot. For those who don't know, people like to speed along Minot as well. That is not a street that is controlled with speed at all. There's often people that I would conservatively say they go 70 miles an hour down the road on regular occasion. And I just, having another development there, having added parking and another thing, I think to be taken into account. And I'd like to add something that somebody else said earlier is because you can put in on property doesn't mean that's the right solution. I know a number of developers take a very different approach to make sure that they maintain the community fabric and respect surrounding neighborhood And I find it hard to believe that losing 3 or 4, I know that it's a issue, that's what it always amounts to. But there will be a difference that respects everybody's I would say, well-being, because I do think that the private issues and density do affect everybody's health and well-being. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We have a couple more hands raised. One has been there for a while. I just have a phone number. It's 925-287. I shouldn't be saying that. We won't finish that number, but I think you know who you are. Please state your name when I turn on the mic. No?
Thank you.
Okay, can you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Brenna Chapazada. My property is on LaSalle Court, and it would share a border with Caliber's proposal for 17 luxury-style homes on a 2-acre lot. I'm in favor of increased density to address the housing crisis. However, this plan is unneighborly. The design is meant to wow potential buyers into paying premium prices. The homes are very large with features such as ensuite bathrooms, lofts, pantry rooms, indoor laundry rooms, which is rare in our neighborhood. The proposed project is nestled into the Carriage Square neighborhood and includes homes that are much larger than any of the original Carriage Square homes, but the lots are postage stamps. Our 4-bed, 3-bed bathroom property on LaSalle is about 1/5 of an acre yard, and it's stretched into this weird triangular shape. And should this development move forward, there would be 3 much larger homes literally looming over ours. They would have no privacy, and we, along with many of our neighbors, would lose ours as well. Ironically, we have an outdoor shed that is further from the fence line due to setback laws, for which Caliber wants an exemption. If this were really about addressing the housing crisis, then Caliber would ask for a zoning change and not a setback exemption in order to build affordable attached townhouses or multifamily buildings in the middle of their property, centered so as to be a good neighbor and respect the privacy of the many bordering families. They would leave the bordering trees, which are truly drought tolerant, many of which have lived for decades without needing to be watered at all. They might include first-level retail space for a neighborhood cafe or convenience shop. This would create affordable housing, encourage community, and increase the walkability score for the whole neighborhood. It's not their proposal. So while I do support building more homes, I don't support this project because the design is simply unneighborly. Lastly, I ask the city to consider that new building projects be all electric. We know electrification is coming in all directions, and it's tempting to wait for the new building codes or BACMID or CARB. I have a home that was built in the 60s, and I've had to update it in various ways. That's normal. But it's not normal or acceptable to have to bear the cost of major renovations in a home that may be less than a decade old, which is what's going to be happening to a lot of our new buildings in the city. Walnut Creek is a growing city, and perhaps even more than many of the local 60 local jurisdictions who've already passed electrification reach codes. You need to protect and prepare the residents for the future by ensuring that all building from here on out is all electric. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have one more hand raised, and that's Roxanne. I'll turn on your mic. Roxanne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm going to speak for Roxanne. This is her husband, Barry.
Thank you.
My name is Barry Tizar, and I have a lot of concerns, and I think everybody has done an excellent job. But my real concern is the parking. If I understand correctly, there's only 3 guest parking spaces for a community of 17 homes. Is that true? Oh, yeah, I'm going to answer it. Yeah, that is true. And God forbid Everett Haberman will appreciate this. If God forbid the 49ers make the Super Bowl, it's going to be a zoo. And that's all I really want to say.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Secretary, do you see anybody else on Zoom?
Seeing none, it looks like everybody's had their chance.
All right.
I see no new hands.
Great, thank you. And thank you to the members of the public for showing up and speaking. So we will close our public comment on this project and now move on to commission comments and potential motions and voting. Commissioner Valia, would you like to start out with your comments, please?
I would have to stress the notion that this is very dense. These are too many houses into this lot, and I mean that's my perception on the plan. I mean, you hardly have the room for anything but the buildings, and I would have liked to see more green, probably open spaces, probably house separations that are more than 3.5 feet or 5 feet, probably setbacks from the neighboring houses that would be bigger. So that's my major concern. Density is my major concern. I feel like there's not a lot we can do with this, but I feel like this won't be a quality product just because of the way it's being it's cited and the way it's being put together. So that's my concern. I mean, architecturally, individual houses look fine. There is some exploration on different styles, which is fine. The combinations, I couldn't tell if the combinations are fine. Plan 1 next to a Plan 2 and a contemporary next to a whatever the other styles are. I still have to see that. I still, there are so many pieces that are missing here, and information pieces that to make a good, solid decision. But my impression is that density is way too much for this lot.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Newsom.
I mean, I would have to echo everything Carlos had said. But I do believe, as everybody said, Zimmer's done a good job of managing this, and I believe she is the way the regulations have been interpreted is correct. That's not to say that it couldn't be better, because I think it could easily be better. The question, I mean, but the way it gets better is you have less density, right? That's the only way. I mean, I think. I guess my question is, listen to some of the things the community has said. Given the fact that we can't do much, I mean, are there things that we can do in the way of heightening the fencing? That's a question I would have, whether that would be something we could put in motion. Another thing might be this garbage truck bit where do garbage trucks, we need to confirm that garbage trucks are not going to have to back up onto that street. I know that street. They should be backing trucks up. I think that would be something that we should say. I mean, I think the tree protection ordinance sadly is out the window here because of the state law. But I think we could encourage that they relocate the tree or deal with the tree in some way. I'm very curious about the SB 330 where it has to be upsized somewhere else. But my understanding is that that's if the city seeks to change the zoning, and the city is not seeking to change the zoning. And I would presume some of the things that were said in the end about the nesting season, endangered species and so forth, I would assume that because this is a project that's conforming to zoning with the modifications, that there's no environmental review required. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Then there's not much, I mean, there's no power that you really have in that regard, right? Yeah, so.
It's just wrong.
There could be conditions. I mean, there's a lot of conditions that used to be included really only in a mitigation plan for a CEQA document such as an EIR or a mitigated negative deck that have kind of over the years become standard conditions of approval. Like construction dust and things like that, and noise. That's kind of becoming one of them, but we'll see what we can do. It's kind of been on our minds a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you have trees of that age. I've been on the other side of this table. Believe me, I'm an architect. I've burrowing owls, frogs, all those things. They always have come up, and I don't think we can exempt ourselves from federal law, right? I mean, federal law we have to make sure we're meeting federal laws. Federal laws protect endangered species. The state can't pull those things out. So that's something that should be looked at. I mean, I think, and like I said, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that our hands are tied in terms of this density, and there's not much that we can do. I think we could hope for better, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Vice Chair Killian.
All right, I think this shows how the good intentions of the state can be hijacked and used for basically maximum economic gain at the expense of the neighbors. I think there are things we can do. I think they're allowed to build 17 homes, but they don't necessarily have to build 17 2,400 square foot homes. There could be some single-family homes. In fact, I think in years past in developments, we only allowed two-story homes in a row before they had to have a one-story home just so that there's variety in height. All 17 of these homes are two-story homes. And not only are they two-story homes, they're literally 3.5 feet off a property line or a fence line, which again I think could make the argument that there's safety and health problems here. I don't see that much variety in the homes either. Again, it's not like the garage is one story and there's a two-story element or setbacks. All that has been gone away. I'm not in favor of this project at all. I'm not willing to send it up to the Planning Commission. I think even with the waivers and allowing them to go 17 homes, I think this project needs to be redesigned to allow it to breathe a little bit more. And again, that means taking some of the homes down to 2,000 square feet, reconfiguring it, reducing the bioswales. There are things that can be done to loosen this up. And I'm just not in favor of this project at all. Landscaping, again, I think the architect, you've done what you could. The issue is the intent of trying to put 17 homes on this project. And that's really the root of the problem. So again, landscaping, what can you do with a 2-foot side yard? You can't. By the time you get a drain in there or irrigation pipe, in shadows, you can't plant there anyway. So it's ridiculous to say that this is a heavily landscaped project. The only landscape opportunity outside is the bioswales, and you're limited to the 14 inches of soil and gravel underneath it. And again, over years, that just becomes a weed pit, is the reality of it. So again, I think this project's going to be just a mess in a couple of years. That would be my opinion. But as far as what we're doing here from a design point of view, they have the right, under state law to do this, but I do not support the design at all. I think there could be some major improvements, and I'm not willing to send this on to the Planning Commission yet without seeing some of those possible changes.
Great, thank you. And let me correct an earlier statement I made, and thank you to Mr. Secretary for updating me. This is just a study session, so we won't have any motions. We're not voting on anything. They're just looking for a recommendation to move it along to Planning Commission. So then I have a question of staff, which is, if we don't get a majority to recommend it to go to Planning Commission, what happens?
Well, there's options. It's a recommendation. I'm sure every applicant would like to have a positive recommendation from the Design Review Commission, but they don't necessarily have to. So if they'd like to go to the Planning Commission without that, with actually what could be either a neutral or a negative recommendation, they can do so.
Okay.
Or they can, take into consideration and address some issues that the Design Review Commission has made up. It's really up to them.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing I'm going to say about the development, and for anyone who wants to bore themselves and needs to fall asleep, you can watch some past Design Review Commission meetings online. I'm very consistent with what I'm about to say when these high-density housing developments, infills, have come up, and this would be the third one since I've been on the Design Review Commission. I really empathize with all of the neighbors of the development. And the reason I empathize is because I ask myself, well, what if this was going in next to my home or next to my court? How would I feel about it? And I often wonder, and how would the developer feel? This happened right next to their house, wherever they live, and it can happen. And some of these state laws allow things I would have never dreamed could happen. Everybody here who owns a home can split their lot in two and put up duplexes by right. So what I like to very consistently say to everybody is, who you vote for in the state legislature really, really matters. So the majority of Californians have voted in a state legislature that believes that the state should override local government's control of zoning and land use, et cetera, when it comes to housing. They really have, for the most part, stripped the Design Review Commission, the City Council, the Planning Commission, and planning staff from operating as we have in the past. I urge people, if you're not happy with what the law is allowing on this development, call your state legislatures. Tell them how you feel, because that's the only place a change can happen at this point. We just don't have that capability anymore at our level. However, one thing we do have the capability of is, we're looking for good design, the best design that is going to be good for both the people who are going to buy these homes and the people who will be who have lived for a long time where these new homes are going. I think the other commissioners captured a lot of my thoughts. I mean, individually, I look at these homes. They're very nice homes. I live in one of these homes. They look great. Where I have an issue, and I'll say this differently, it's sort of a repeat of one of the other commissioners. It's sort of an optics problem. The optics are, I'm going to put one affordable housing unit in, but I'm going to ask for 15 waivers and a concession. The optics of that are not good. Is it legal? Yes, but I think the optics just don't look good, at least to me. But my main issue with the project is the site layout, and I think my questions earlier kind of allude to what I think could be better designed. It could be townhouses or something different. My main issue is looking at lots 3, 4, 14, and 15, whether I look at it on the plan two-dimensionally or if I look at the rendering that we looked at. That just doesn't feel like the right way to use the land for the 17 housing units. So the law says this project can have 17 housing units. The spirit of the law is to make more housing available and probably more affordable housing available. I think the project as it stands, it's just going to have one that's affordable, and the lion's share will be market rate. So be it. That's what the state has said you can do. But I have a hard time recommending this project based upon the site layout. It's not so much because I know I'm constrained in terms of the density bonus law, so I'm not going to stand here and go, I don't want the 17 houses, because that's kind of, that decision's been taken away from me. But if we're going to have 17 houses, I'd like to see a better layout that somehow will look better and feel better to the new homeowners, and as much as possible, anything that can be done to provide privacy to the existing neighbors, whether it is fences or taller fences, which of course is its own set of permits with the city, or what gets planted, maybe the setbacks can be a little bit bigger in the rear somehow. Anyway, those are my issues with the project. It's really just the overall site layout that I have a hard time supporting. So I'm going to turn to Mr. Secretary and ask you to help us run through the recommendation you're looking for. We're able to give it.
Well, there's a couple things here. There's going to be an overall recommendation, so we could get a feel for that. But I think we also would be remiss if we didn't send the applicant away with a set of comments that are agreed to by at least 3 of you for them to address. And I'm kind of listing those issues out now, and we can kind of do a hand raise to that effect. We really need to reach consensus and provide, focused direction. So that's the meaning of that. And I can start doing that, but I just hope I don't miss anything. And these are unfortunately not in site planning, architecture, landscape, but we can try. So one was we would like to see, if it comes back to the Design Review Commission, you'd like to see some streetscape drawings and
Yes.
sections. We had 3, okay.
I think
Is there-
cross-section, like going across lots 16, 15, 3, and 2, again, to address your concerns, actually seeing how they're,
And extend it to the neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see the scale of this with the scale of the neighbors and the distances and everything. We would like to see the big picture.
On a much smaller issue is a study of relocating the mailboxes.
I think that makes sense.
How about the 3rd tree per side along Minert, which would make a total of 6 street trees as opposed to 4 that's shown?
the way we're going, we're kind of picking little items here. My concern is not start over, but let's see what we can do with maybe a smaller footprint or whatever. And again, that may, this idea of where you move a mailbox or this and that kind of goes out the window because, you know, we're talking a whole different level. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay.
I would like to see, you know, can they put a 2,000 square foot home on? And that may then allow more setbacks for the neighborhood or allow more driveway aprons and so forth.
Okay.
So I'd like to start with a bigger picture first.
I agree with that completely. I mean, it could be that either the units are smaller or it could be a different building type. It could be townhouses. And that
Well,
will,
that would require a rezone. So that it's a single family, it needs to remain single family.
yeah, I mean, what I'm thinking here is that we need more open space and we need more setbacks. And how do you do that? Single family is not allowing you to do that.
So would it be address or explore smaller home sizes for some of the plans or variety? Okay. Okay, and I'm seeing 4 here.
Just
How about, and this was touched on, but how about fronting some of the houses on Minor so that you could have less driveway?
Yeah.
That might create space.
Yeah, that could help get rid of the stacked units, 3, 4, 14, and 15.
Is there a consensus?
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so those are some big picture items. Those are that's home size. That's also rearranging the subdivision layout. Okay, I think we would be. I don't know that we can really talk about density.
Right.
Density is there.
Yeah.
Could I heard others mention, could you mix and match single and 2-story homes? I know that goes with
We
size.
can ask them to do that, but we have objective design standards that do not address that.
Yeah. But since we're in since we're just giving our recommendations as a design body, we're saying, hey, this is what we would like to see. We're not in a position to say thou shalt.
Consensus?
Yes. And again, I would like to push out, recognizing that they have a waiver for setbacks, but again, recognizing, you know, maybe the minimum setbacks is then on the interior, so the people that are buying these know what they're getting, but the homes along the existing neighbors, you know, maybe there's a minimum there that respects the neighbor's property, and, you know, the minimum isn't 3.5 feet, you know, maybe the minimum is 7 or something a little bit more realistic. Again, recognizing they have the waiver, but that's kind of what I would be looking for.
Okay, so that was, so can I boil that down to,
Encouraging more setbacks between existing neighbors and new homes.
okay, encourage, okay. And do we have consensus on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Boundary. Okay, great. Let's see, what were some of the other issues that were discussed? Reduced, we got that. Nesting season conditions. Yeah.
That's federal law, I think, or.
Yeah, it is, it meets all the 5 tests for a 15532 exemption. But I think that we can take a look at doing a standard condition of approval moving forward for that. The developers are all used to that type of thing and have done it on several of their projects.
Because isn't this CEQA exempt as an infill?
Yeah, it's 15532.
Okay.
Okay, so do we reach consensus on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we encourage higher fencing, although I see that as both a positive and a negative? I mean, the neighbors want it for privacy, but what I don't like is if you have a 2-story home and it's 4 feet away and then you have an 8-foot fence, I mean, that's gonna be miserable. That's just gonna be a dark, sloppy little know-nothing alleyway.
We could absolutely encourage that, when we could say required it for the boundary.
Boundary, the perimeter fencing.
Yeah, for the perimeter fence, 7 or 8 foot.
I'm good with that.
Okay. That's a 4-0? All right,
So,
great, okay. And that was the next one on my list. I think I've gotten them all, with the
Can I throw out
exception,
another one?
with the
I'm on a
exception
roll
of,
here.
with the exception of potentially moving tree 7. I just don't think that's possible.
Or preserving it.
Look into it.
Maybe things could be nudged to move or preserve tree 7, make an attempt to do that.
Okay, is there consensus on that?
I'm not, I think, you know, development is development on a tree unless it's very special. You know, I think that's unnecessary tying the, I mean, it's a good argument to make to try to change it, but I think realistically on other projects,
And I think in this area, the grade's going to be changed enough to wreak havoc on that tree. It's going to be a few feet. 4 feet? Yeah, so there'll be a 4 feet grade elevation increase at that point.
well, and that,
and I agree with you, I don't think relocating is practical or doable.
No, it's a lot more than 75,000. Try to do it
And
myself.
if the tree lives or not is a gamble anyway.
Okay.
yeah, that tree is right between lots 9 and 10.
I mean, we can't require it, but we could encourage it, right?
Yeah.
Encourage it.
I mean, possibly, maybe, I don't know, if 9 and 10 were single story designs with a little bit more side setback, maybe the tree could stay where it is. I don't know.
It would probably still be in the drip line.
Okay.
Would probably still impact the tree.
Yep. All right, so where are we on encourage preservation of tree 7? Do we have consensus on that?
Yeah.
I would agree to encourage.
I'll encourage.
Might be impractical, but
Yeah.
try.
I would try it.
Encourage impracticality.
Okay.
Encourage creativity.
Okay,
Yes.
that's better.
There you go. I like that.
Okay, we have 10
Points.
10 comments, mostly encourage, some very project-changing ones, and then we'll,
I'd also add one more.
sure.
That however it shows up, but if we have these two bioswales at the front or whatever, that be, I know Ripley can do a spectacular design out there. I mean, that's gonna be the front door, if it turns out this way, or whatever it turns out, but definitely upgrade the wow factor of landscaping. on the front
Okay, so
doors.
we're not talking about relocating, resizing?
Well, I don't know, it may be.
Okay. 'Cause-
I'm just looking, with 17 homes, no matter what the configuration, there's not gonna be a heck of a lot of landscaping, so whatever there is, do your magic on it.
Chip, we haven't touched on the visitors parking, and it's a huge concern. Parking is a huge concern here.
It meets the parking requirement. There's no waiver there. I mean, our parking, we don't require guest parking for a project like this.
And unfortunately, most of these state laws let you take an existing single-family home and expand it and throw up an ADU and have up to 4 families on the property
Yep,
where there
that's
was
right.
one without requirement for extra parking.
Yep, that's right.
What might happen in a case like this is that there, and I think we've seen this recently, was to have CCNR saying, you got to park your cars in your garage. At least one or two.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a storage facility.
Can we impose the CCNR?
We can condition them.
That,
People
I
just
would so
don't-
move, then I would suggest that be in there.
I would add it. From experience, people don't follow them unless you're willing to get into World War III with your neighbor. I can honestly say on my 7-house infill development I live in, and it's in the CCNRs, keep the garages, the 3-car garages, keep the garages clear for the number of cars it's designed for. We're the only one of 7 houses that doesn't have cars regularly on the driveway.
Okay, do we reach consensus on that?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
That's a good one.
Okay. Is there any other issues that we've missed?
Well, it was mentioned by several that it's close to the school. And again, environmental review is not required here. But is there any condition that we can make to make sure, because there's an issue of safety here, which we can speak to. I mean, there's some mitigation or recommendation that we can make to ensure that traffic patterns around the school are not,
Well,
this isn't going to worsen them?
This project includes a road dedication and improvements, including sidewalks along the project boundary. It would be difficult to require any off-site improvements, like new paint for crosswalks down the street or whatever.
I mean, how far away from the school is it?
I don't know. 2,200 feet. It sounds like a few
2,200
hundred
feet.
Yeah.
So that's like, what, 2 football fields, more or less?
It's about a half mile, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah. So, I mean, the inclusion of sidewalks would probably
yeah, I mean,
keep
it would be
kids- keep
unusual
kids
to
from
make,
walking on the street.
impose something that's a half a mile away. I know, I design schools, so I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
Thanks. No action then.
Okay, I think we have direction. We have a negative recommendation, and that is unanimous. That's 4-0. Is that correct?
Question.
Okay.
Is that,
That's my recommendation.
I think we have a unanimous
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay, and then we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 issues or comments for the applicant to consider. Great.
Thank you for leading us through that. All right, so that closes our public hearing on the residences. And that was our only public hearing item. So now moving on to commission considerations. Do we have any commission considerations?
I have none.
Okay. And then moving to item 6, commission member and staff reports or announcements. Do we have any commission member or staff announcements?
No, sir.
I have a question I missed last meeting, but I think you guys discussed about moving the meeting time. Was there any
Yes.
decision on that, or?
Yeah, there was a decision. The decision was to, I think it's unanimous, to move it to for city council consideration to move this meeting time from 7 PM to
Oh,
6
they have to
PM.
decide, okay.
Yeah.
And that'll be agendized in the future. I'm not quite sure when. We'll try to make it happen this year.
Great. All right. Any other commission member or staff reports or announcements? Then we will adjourn the meeting.